In this session, we're talking about the power of a positive no. When you go into your day, knowing what your yeses are, what your priorities are, what your values are, it makes it easier to say no. So in his book, William Urey's book, The Power of a Positive No, he talks about this, and it's a good book to read. He talks about the fact that you want to have that yes, that backdrop of why am I saying no? If somebody comes and asks you for something, to attend a meeting, to take on another project, to do something, and you're already in overload, or you just don't want to do it, you want to be able to not be reactionary, because the minute they ask you or say something or put a demand on you, I like to talk about the red brain. Your red brain is going to trigger. And now your body language may reflect it. The look in your eye, the tone in your voice is going to maybe reflect this resistance. They tell us that we have 30 seconds to make a first impression, but that's a continual thing. It's not the first time that we meet that person. It's every time we encounter that person. So now the person comes to you and makes a request, check your body language. Look at them, make direct eye contact. You stand up tall. You make sure you manage kind of the inflections and the tone in your voice, because when we kind of hit a pitch or we go gruff or however we do, now we've sent a signal that we're not necessarily in full control of ourselves. You are in control of your emotions. Your emotions are not in control of you. Your yes is yes and your no is no. There is no compromise on that. No compromise. We are not being confrontational, but we're not being weak. You want to, I always love to say, pivot. So the minute someone comes at you, it's like you just block the shot, right? Pivot. Look at how can you help them with that. And before you get to offering a solution, before you get to responding, you want to go to that balcony. In the book, The Power of a Positive No, he refers to going to that balcony. That is you stepping out. Imagine stepping out on a balcony. When you step on a balcony, what do you have the advantage of? A panoramic view. So on kind of the fields in front of you are your yeses. What do you need to maintain the boundaries around? Your values, your other commitments. So that's in front of you. That kind of reminds you of why you need to say no. Now you look at, how can I say no? Not am I going to say no? How am I going to say no? Depends on who it is and what they're asking. But you want to come off of that balcony, as you're stepping off that balcony, to already have rehearsed in your mind, how am I going to say no? Is it going to be kind of a cold no because I have no solution to offer them? They invited me to something again, but I don't want to go. And I don't want to leave the door open that, oh, let me know when the next fill in the blank is, because I really don't want to go. So then you close the door and the door's closed. Is it that you want to say, you know what, I can't go now, but I really would like to go in the future? So then that's how you pivot. I really can't go now, but I'm looking forward to the next time our calendars align and we can do this again in the future, or we can do this for the first time, or whatever the situation calls for. Is it something that's part of your team and they're asking something of you, whether it's your boss or your team, they want something of you, but you can't give your time and attention at that moment? Can we do it on Friday? I can't do it right now, but how does Friday at 8 sound? How does Thursday at 4 sound? What other times? Give me a couple times next week that work for you, and I'm going to confirm it on my calendar if somebody else is holding your calendar. Or you know what? Let's stand here right now and look at the next time that we can both coordinate, and let's book it right now. And we block that time before we leave this encounter. You want to make sure that you maintain your position of power with confidence, because if you do not, and you keep saying yes when you should say no, what impact is that going to have on you? What is that going to, how is it going to impact your psyche? Because you're going to trip into your emotional brain. And when we are in our emotional brain, we don't make good decisions. Our emotions are in control of us, and we're not in control of our emotions. And when that happens repeatedly, you are training yourself, your neural pathways, you are training yourself to now be someone who always caves and gives in when you don't want to. That being the case, your level of respect for yourself is diminishing, which happens every time we give in when we don't want to. And therefore, it just becomes easier to do that. And when we do that, it ripples out into your entire life. So now you're going to give in to everyone at all times because that's how you've trained yourself. Or you're going to give in certain circumstances to your job, but you're never giving in to anybody else because that's where you feel like you want to have some level of power. So maybe I'm always going to say no to my spouse if I don't want to do it. I'm confident and comfortable, saying no, and I'm going to validate it in some way. Well, I've got to go to work, or I have to do this, or am I going to say no to the kids? Am I going to say no to my parents, to my friends, to who am I going to say no to? Because as humans, we want to be able to say we have some level of control in our lives. And if we don't maintain balance, now it's going to be a tip scale. And someone or some part of our life is going to consistently get those no's, and there go our relationships. There go that connection. And then we're going to wonder that when we chip out a little time, it's like, oh, I have this time, and now we want them to fit in, but they're not available. They don't care to be available. It's always causing friction and miscommunications, and we're opening up a world of negative situations because we didn't know how to say no. And we didn't maintain our values and our boundaries. And good leaders want to make sure we lead ourselves first, and then that ripples down to everyone we come in contact with. So now we've said no to our boss or to a situation or to a client looking to shift something, an upper deadline or something. And we've said no, because not only is it for us, but it's for our team. How are we constantly taking on things and now we push that over to the team? Well, I'm going to date night. Make sure you work on this. And, now they feel pressured and they feel it's unjust. So we want to look at making sure we are maintaining our boundaries and our values. We're saying no when we should say no, considering ourselves and considering everybody else in our world. So as you're looking to maintain that no and start saying no, remembering to rehearse it in your imagination. You go onto that balcony. If you know that you've consistently maybe said yes up to this point, rehearse before you meet that person. When I train, I always tell people, just like you would do a speech and you're in the mirror, and the more nervous you may be, if you go in the mirror and you practice once or you never practice before you go do that speech, and you tend to be nervous when you're presenting in front of people, what's the probability you're going to trip up? And you're going to have like these anxieties before you go up. But if you practice it in front of the mirror repeatedly, to your brain, because your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagination, your brain is going to say, well, I've made this speech 50 times already. But in reality, this is going to be the first time in front of the group or the person. But in your imagination, it says, this is the 50th time because you did it 49 times in your mirror. It's called your mirror work. So make sure whatever the situation is that you find that it's challenging to manage your emotions and stay in the boundaries of your values, practice in your mirror. Benefit from how our mind and our neural networks work. So practice this in your upcoming conversations and see if people may not do it immediately, especially if we've been in the habit of saying yes to everything, but see if over time people don't start to respect your boundaries more.